Welcome to the Bodhi Academy. Today we are going to solve PYQ questions from biology on chapter Molecular Basis of Inheritance. So let us take the first question. So the first question is DNA replication is semi-continuous on one strand. Explain. So DNA replication is a semi-continuous model. So this is a DNA structure. So this is a double helix DNA. So the enzyme which are involved in the process of DNA formation is DNA helicase, which is helping in unwinding of the double helix. Then DNA primase, which helps in adding RNA primers. Then DNA polymerase, which helps in synthesis of the new DNA strand, and DNA ligase, which helps in the joining of Okazaki fragments. So basically these are the enzymes which are involved in DNA replication. So let us now understand why this model is called as a discontinuous model. So over here, this is a replication fork wherein the process of DNA replication takes place. So a replication bubble is formed when the DNA helicase enzyme binds to the DNA strand. So this bubble is formed wherein the replication process starts. So this strand is called as the leading strand, which has a polarity that is 5 prime to 3 prime, and the second strand is called as the lagging strand, which has a polarity from 3 prime to 5 prime. So this here this leading strand will form continuous DNA strand, but the DNA strand which is formed at the lagging strand will be discontinuous. So why is this so? So this is because the discontinuity is because there are short Okazaki fragments which are formed. So this small fragments which are formed are called as the Okazaki fragments. So this happens because the DNA polymerase can only add nucleotide in 5 prime to 3 prime direction. So if it forms if it adds nucleotide from 3 prime 5 prime to 3 prime direction, the DNA will be continuous. But if it is not forming the nucleotides in the direction that is 5 prime to 3 prime, then it will be a discontinuous strand. So that is why it is called as a discontinuous strand on one strand. So the next question, explain the Hershey and Chase experiment. So Hershey and Chase model, that is, experiment was done on bacteriophage which infected the E. coli bacteria. So bacteriophage are viruses that infect E. coli, which is a bacteria. So they did a experiment using bacteriophage, which is a virus, to infect the E. coli bacteria to identify what is the genetic material, either if it is protein or the DNA material. To identify what is the genetic material, they performed the experiment. So in this experiment, what they did is they took two groups of virus labeled, which were first, which was radioactive sulfur. So one group of virus they took and they labeled the virus as with radioactive sulfur, and the second group of virus which they took, they labeled it with radioactive phosphorus. So they labeled one group with radioactive sulfur to label the protein, and they labeled radioactive phosphorus to label the DNA. So this was the step which they follow. So how the experiment was held? So the steps are, first is infection, that is the labeled viruses were injected in the E. coli. So the viruses were allowed to infect the E. coli, which was labeled as radioactive phosphorus and radioactive sulfur. Then after infection, what they did was second step, that is blending. So in blending, a blender was used to detach the protein coat from the bacteria. So this, after this step, they went for centrifugation. So in centrifugation, what was done was it was done to separate the bacteria and the viral parts. So after doing this, what they concluded was the radioactive phosphorus was found inside the bacterial cell, which proved that DNA is the genetic material. And the second conclusion what they did was radioactive sulfur remained outside the cell. This proved that protein do not transfer as genetic material. So this was how Hershey and Chase did experiment using radioactive sulfur and radioactive phosphorus with bacteriophage and E. coli bacteria to identify that DNA is the genetic material. So the next question is, describe various region of Lech operon. So Lech operon is a gene regulatory system found in bacteria that controls the lactose metabolism. So this is a gene regulatory system found in bacteria, especially in E. coli, that controls your lactose metabolism. So these are the various regions of a Lech operon. That is, the first is called as a regulatory gene, that is LEC-L. Then comes the promoter region. Then comes the operator region, and then the structural genes, that is LEC-Z, LEC-Y, and LEC-A. So let us learn this in detail now. So these are the various components of the Lech operon. First is the regulatory gene, that is the LEC-L gene. So this produces repressor protein that binds to the promoter and blocks transcription. So this gene is responsible for the uh, production of protein that binds to the operator. Then promoter, that is your P, binding site for RNA polymerase. Then operator, that is represented as O, is a repressor protein which binds to block the transcription. And then comes your structural gene, that is LEC-Z, LEC-Y, and LEC-A. So these are the different components of a Lech operon, that is a gene regulatory system. That is, it consists of LEC-L gene, that is a regulatory gene. Then there is a promoter region, there is an operator region, and there is the structural genes, that is LEC-Z, LEC-Y, and LEC-A. The next question is, draw a neat diagram of DNA double helix. So DNA double helix consists of two strands, that is from 3' to 5' polarity and 5' to 3' polarity. So these two strands are your sugar phosphate backbones. And inside this, there are this sugar phosphate backbones are held by the base pairs. So each bubble will consist of 4 base pairs. So these are the base pairs. So there are 4 base pairs, that is adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. Adenine and thymine are held by 2 hydrogen bonds, and guanine and cytosine are held by 1, 2, 3 hydrogen bonds. So basically this is a double helix structure of DNA. So these are the sugar phosphate backbones. The sugar phosphate backbones are will consist of your, okay, these are your sugar phosphate backbones. This consists of 4 base pair each. So A, T, G, C. A, T, G, C. So A, T are held by 2 hydrogen bonds and G, C are held by 3 hydrogen bonds. So this is how the 2 strands are held together by hydrogen bond. So this is your sugar phosphate backbone. Then comes your base pairs A, T, G. So A will be complemented to T, G with 3 hydrogen bonds to C, and C to G. So this is how the basic double helix structure of DNA is represented. So the next question is, what is the role of operator region of leg operon? So the operator region is a DNA sequence that acts as a simple switch to regulate the gene expression. So the operator region will be like a, this is your repressor, then this is the promoter, these are the structural genes. So your operator will be like a DNA sequence that acts as a switch to regulate the gene expression. So how does that happen? When there is no lactose present, the repressor protein binds to the operator. So when lactose is absent, the repressor protein will bind to the operator region, preventing RNA polymerase from transcribing the gene. So there will be no transcription happening in that uh, process. So when the lactose is present, in presence of lactose, what happens is the repressor binds to the uh, this lactose will bind to the repressor region, causing it to detach from the operator, allowing transcription. So this will allow the promote operator to allow the process of transcription in the gene. So this is how the uh, promoter region operates uh, in regulating the gene expression of the leg operon gene. So the next question is, describe the structure of tRNA and mRNA molecule. So the tRNA molecule, it consists of amino acid attachment site. So this is the amino acid attachment site. Then it consists of two loops, that is the T loop and the D loop, and a anticodon site which helps in binding of the mRNA codon. So this is the anticodon site which will help in attachment of the mRNA codon for protein synthesis. Then comes your mRNA. So mRNA is basically a single-stranded molecule which contains of codon that specify amino acid. So there are specific codons which are specifically present to produce a specific amino acid. So a specific sequence of amino acid, a specific sequence of codon will code for a specific amino acid. So there are this is the single strand, that is sugar phosphate backbone, and then there will be nucleotides, that is adenine, guanine, cytosine, and uracil. So this is the structure of tRNA and mRNA. So the next question is, what are purines and pyrimidines in DNA and RNA? So purines and pyrimidines are basically, purines have double ring structures. So these are nucleotide which have double ring structures, and they are nucleotide which have single ring structures. Basically purines consist of adenine and guanine, and pyrimidines consist of cytosine, thymine, and uracil. So this is the difference between purines and pyrimidines in DNA and RNA. Describe any four salient features of Human Genome Project. So the four salient features of Human Genome Project is completed in 2003. It mapped the entire human genome, that is, which consists of 3 billion base pairs. Then they discovered 25,000 genes in humans. The third one is found that only less than 1.5% of the genome codes for protein. And then fourth one is identified repeated DNA sequences with unknown functions. So these were the four salient features of Human Genome Project. The next question, define transformation in Griffith's experiment. Discuss how it helped in identification of DNA as the genetic material. So Griffith, what he did was, he worked with two strains of Streptococcus pneumonia which caused pneumonia in mice. So he worked with two strains of Streptococcus pneumonia, and then he injected those strains in mice to see if DNA is the genetic material or not. So what he did was, in his experiment, he took two strains. The first strain was called as the smooth strain or the S strain, which was virulent, as in it caused death in the mice. So this was a harmful strain. So this is a harmful strain of Streptococcus pneumonia, that is the smooth strain we noted as S strain or the virulent strain. Then the second strain of Streptococcus pneumonia which Griffith took was the rough strain or the R strain. So the rough strain is denoted as the R strain, which is a non-virulent strain. So this is a harmless strain. So these were the two strains which he took in his experiment. So what he did was, he took R strain and S strain and he injected it into mice. So first thing what he did was, he took live R strain and then he injected it into mice. So he took R strain plus mice. So what happened here was, the mouse lived. Okay. Then in the second step what he did was, he took live S strain and then injected it into mouse. So he took live S strain and then he injected it into mouse. So the mouse died. Then in third step, what he did was, he took heat killed S strain and then injected it into the mice. So what he did before injecting the S strain into the mouse, what he did was, he heat killed the S strain. So basically it is a bacteria. So he heated it and then injected that into the mouse. So what happened over here was, heat killed S strain plus mice. So the mouse lived. So here the mouse was not dead, he lived. So then in the fourth step what he did? So in the fourth step, he took heat killed S strain plus R strain. So he took heat killed S strain plus your R strain. And here what happened was, the mouse died. So why does this happens? Here, when we injected the mouse with heat killed S strain, it lived. But what happened in the fourth step was, when he injected heat killed S strain, but he incorporated that with R strain also. So what happened over here is the transformation. Transformation of heat killed S strain, transformation of your R strain into S strain. So this basically proved that is something in the S strain, in the heat killed S strain, that transformed the R strain, which was a non-virulent strain, into a virulent strain, which caused the death of the mouse. So this was the transformation principle which Griffith explained using his experiment, that is using two strains of Streptococcus pneumonia bacteria, that is S strain and the R strain, wherein when injected in mice, the R strain one lived, the S strain one died. When he took heat killed S strain one, the mouse died, but when he injected a combination of heat kill S strain plus the R strain, that is a non-virulent one, transformed into a virulent one, that is a harmful strain of bacteria, and caused the death of the mouse. So this explains your transformation principle by Griffith. So the last question is, discuss the process of translation in detail. So translation is basically process of synthesis of protein from the mRNA. So here the steps which are involved in the process of translation are, first step is initiation, then elongation, and then the termination. So what happens in each step? Let us understand now. So in initiation, the ribosome binds to mRNA at start codon, that is AUG. So your mRNA consists of a backbone with the nucleotide bases. So the start codon for this is AUG. So at this point, the ribosome binds to mRNA. So your ribosome binds to the mRNA at the site start codon, which is AUG, where the transcription process starts. Then the tRNA brings the amino acid called as methionine. So this is the first amino acid which is required for the process of transcription to start. Then what happens is, now this is the initiation, that is the starting part of translation process. Now what happens is elongation. So tRNA molecule brings amino acid to ribosome. So the tRNA will bring the amino acid methionine to the ribosomal site over here, which is the AUG site wherein the translation process will start. Then the tRNA molecule brings amino acid to the ribosomes. Then peptide bonds form between amino acid, elongating the polypeptide chain. So then the ribosome will move on the mRNA molecule to form peptide bonds between the amino acid, elongating the peptide polypeptide chain. And a polypeptide chain will be formed during the process of elongation. Then during the process of termination, so this is the last step in the process of translation, that is termination, when the ribosome reaches a stop codon. So the stop codon are UAA, UAG and UGA. So these are the stop codons wherein when the ribosome will reach this stop codons, the translation process will stop and the polypeptide will be released and folded into functional protein. So now this polypeptide which are formed will be folded into functional proteins. So this is how the process of translation occurs in 3 steps. That is, the process of translation is basically process of formation of protein from the RNA molecule. So first step is initiation, wherein the ribosome will bind to your RNA molecule to start the process of translation. Then the process of elongation start, wherein the tRNA molecule brings amino acid to the ribosomal site. Then your elongation of polypeptide chain occurs, and then there is termination when the ribosome reaches your stop codon, that is UAA, UAG and UGA. Then the process of translation will stop and the polypeptide which is formed will be folded into functional protein for further functioning of the body. So this is the process of translation, that is protein formation. Thank you for watching today's video. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe to the Bodhi Academy.